We're here at Bale Fest 2014. Aaron Sparks with Edge of the Web Radio, and we've got Quinn Buckner of the ex-Indiana Pacer, but you've got a laundry list of other things that you've been doing here recently.
Yeah, I do. I'm the Vice President of Communications for the Indiana Pacers.
Fantastic.
Which is part of my job. I am the television broadcaster. I do all 82 games for the Pacers.
That's right.
In addition to that, I've, within the last 5 years, have gotten involved. I now am a financial advisor, primarily in the insurance area, but for me, it was growth. It was like personal innovation. I've been blessed enough to be in sports all of my life, since about 4th grade. And I got to a point that I really enjoy being in sports, but I needed, like we all, I needed something to kind of jump me again.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of what happened and how I got in financial services. Pardon me. So I've been very, very blessed and have, had success athletically and personally, but I failed like everyone else. But like I tell my children, a failure is really an unwanted outcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, if you quit, then it's a failure. If it's an unwanted outcome and you manage to learn from it and grow from it, then it becomes a positive, and then it's the outcome you want. You're not a failure at that point. And trust me, I failed. We all fail.
And that's an incredible point there. So many people own the label failure as opposed to look at it as an element or an item, a stumbling block. There's so much personal that goes on whenever there's a challenge that you can't overcome at that moment. How have you been able to kind of compartmentalize that and move on? Because it's a tough thing, any way you cut it.
It really is a tough team, and I think the salient point that you bring is it's not who you are if you don't have the if you have that unwanted outcome. It's what has occurred. Now, if you're disciplined and really focused on trying to get to your goal, that may happen. It may happen differently. The important point is that you learn from it, make the adjustment, and continue to move.
Right.
One of the ways I learned from it was my dad said something to me which is really weird. As a sports analogy, I'm sports. I played football, but I love basketball. My dad really understood my psyche. So after I played 4 years of high school football and basketball, 2 years in college, and 4 years of basketball in college as well. I got done playing. I said to my dad, "Why is it that you were so intent on me playing football?" Now, mind you, my dad played football, so you kind of think is that?
Yeah.
He said, "It's as close to life as you're going to get." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "When you get knocked down, you got to get back up."
Yes, sir.
Well, when you get knocked down is what some people consider a failure. You got to get back up. Now, get back up with a focus and pay attention to why you got knocked down. So the next time I go through that I'm looking for that guy and came and clipped me. But it's the same thing in life. You're looking for the thing that caused you a problem before.
And you're prepared for it.
Yeah, and so and preparation is Coach Knight, who I played for at Indiana, was terrific about it. Preparation meets opportunity. That's luck. That's what you want.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, let me ask you this about entrepreneurs, and there's an entire principle here inside of failure. There's been a kind of a thought for decades that you don't want to share those failures. In fact, if you share those, it's not going to be attractive to any type of investment capital. It's not going to be attractive to any other businesses, and I
argue against that.
Absolutely.
Because anybody that's had success has had what is considered a failure. What they would admire the fact that you at least are candid and honest about the fact that you've made that mistake or you failed, whatever you want to call it, unwanted outcome. And entrepreneurs know that's part of the process. That's how they know you're really an entrepreneur.
You've been beat up.
You've been beat up. And then part of being beat up is where you get smarter.
Right.
Where you learn how to do things more efficiently. Because ultimately, that's what we all want to do. Just do things more efficiently, whatever you decide that thing happens to be. But to label yourself, the part that is really disconcerting to me is to label yourself a failure.
Right.
Because you've had an unwanted outcome or a failure of a circumstance. It's not a failure of your character. It may be some ignorance that you may have had, but ignorance can be overcome. That's a function of what you know. You can go learn, and you've learned through this failure and other places how to improve upon that particular outcome. And that's the part that I think people get caught in. I don't mind being called ignorant on subject matters that I'm ignorant on. Because
we all are.
Most of us are on a lot of subjects.
Absolutely.
There's some we have expertise in, some we don't. And that is where I think, and sometimes with entrepreneurs, I also think because they have had some success sometimes, One of the challenges, and I see it in professional athletes, I struggled with it a little bit myself. If you've had success, you have a hard time believing there's some other area you don't have success in. And that's when you start to internalize it and personalize the fact that I can do this. I can't believe I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm ignorant, I can't do that. It is just a different kind of intelligence. If you can't do it, they do have people that can.
Absolutely.
And bring those people on board. So that's a willingness to accept who you are. And I'll give you an example. One of the things I learned about my lack of preparation, I coached the Dallas Mavericks for a year.
Right.
And I think we won, if I'm stretching it, we won 15, 16 games out of 82. What I learned was about my arrogance and my ignorance and not preparing. Those are the kind of things that can get you in trouble, because that's all ego.
Yep, it's all heady stuff.
It's all ego.
Yep.
That's stuff that you feel versus what's real. Deal with what's real. What are your capabilities? What do you need? Are you focused? Do you have the right capacity? Those things are things that are real. This up here, this can
Get in the way.
It can get in the way when you overthink the issue.
Now you see this group, this FailFest organization,
Yeah.
and you see Launch Indianapolis and Launch Indiana and Launch Fishers. You're seeing a different shift. You're seeing a shift from a mindset of fearing failure to actually embracing failure and also connecting with other entrepreneurs that want to share and give back. What an incredibly different environment that is than maybe a decade ago, 2 decades ago.
Well, I think one of the challenges that we have here in Indiana, and I do have a home in Texas, but I live here for the most part,
Yep.
is not being early adopters.
Right.
It's just kind of what's been. And I think, as we all live in this world today with technology and the advancements that it makes and the short time span that it does,
Yep.
it requires a pooling of resources, intellectual, physical, mental. It
Spiritual,
requires
absolutely.
spiritual. You have to come at it from all angles. So I think there is a changing. There's a prominent change going on. I don't think it's. I'm glad to know it's here in Fishers, but I think it's here in Indiana. You and I were talking before we started the Innovation Summit with Steve Forbes.
Right.
I have come back here, believe it or not, for almost 40 years. Can't fathom Indiana having done something like that. Now,
Yeah, it's
the
amazing.
challenge is, how do you carry that forward in some meaningful way? And I think that's what all of us have to figure out. I think the more we're into this and the older you get, the more you realize, while you're an entrepreneur, you're not doing this alone. I don't care what you do. You're not doing it alone.
You can't have success alone.
You can't. And there's so many other places as a resource that you can look for it, even if it's on the internet with somebody,
Right.
not just sitting here like you and I are, but sitting across the Atlantic or across the Pacific on the other side of the world. That, to me, says the world has changed tremendously, and we all better get with it.
And people are wanting to share their experiences. I think that's the takeaway from
Yeah.
all this, is that fear doesn't have to be avoided. I mean, failure doesn't have to be avoided. You can embrace it, and people and these type of conduits that are being developed now, you can capitalize on that and learn from everybody's mistake and make a much better success out of what you're
Well,
going after.
Spark, I met John Wexler, as I told you. I met him just a short time ago.
Yeah.
Because I heard of this and heard that people were willing to talk about it.
Yep.
I literally just said, yes, I'll do it. I have a game tonight, but that's, and I usually do some other things during the day. I
Sure.
said, no, I wanted to get into this because I like the fact that entrepreneurs are coming together. Because I think the first part of becoming better at dealing with failure is that you have to recognize it. And I think some have recognized it because they're here.
Right.
The next step is to embrace it. Pat Riley, the great coach, he talks about that. Embrace that kind of experience. Embrace, if it doesn't work, own it.
Absolutely.
That's the key. When you own it, then you figure out what it is you need to change about it, and then make that change. And when it comes back, either way, own that as well.
All right, final thought for a new entrepreneur, because you've been in business and you've been
Yeah.
in sports. There's a lot of similarities there. For a new entrepreneur that has an idea, doesn't know where to start, or has that fear of even jumping in and taking that risk, what do you say?
I say jump in. I think you got to be willing to talk to people. Life is built on relationships. And they probably have some relationships, just haven't had an initial conversation. To just tell someone what you're thinking. And inevitably, what I find is that there's somebody who knows someone that you can just go sit and talk to. And then it grows. And then they'll send you somewhere else. You develop those relationships. And the more you do that, the more energy you get. Is that people are willing to accept the call. But it goes back to embracing it. Because I think some don't embrace it because they're fear that somebody's going to say no. So what? Go to somebody else, they'll say yes. If they say no, don't worry about it. The nature of life is most people are willing to help and want to help.
Yes, sir.
Frankly, I think that's what we're all here for.
I completely agree. Well, Quinn, thank you so much for your time, and we'll be watching your career on a regular basis. Thanks for spending time in PhilFest 2014.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Thank
Take
you.
care.